Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Logikcull webcast, Cybersecurity and Analytics, How Both Will Change Your Career in E-Discovery. My name is Robert Hilson. I'm a director at Logikcull, and I want to wish everyone happy Friday and happy holidays as well. For the purposes of scheduling, we'll probably go about 45 minutes to an hour on this call. We will be fielding questions throughout, so I encourage everyone, if you do have questions, to type them into the little chat box that you see on the right of your screen, and again, we will field those questions in the course of the presentation if they are relevant to our topic. We do have a great topic today, and we have two excellent presenters as well from our co-presenter True Staffing Partners today. The first presenter is Jared Caseglia. He is the founder and CEO of True Staffing Partners, which is based up in New York, but a national staffing firm. Jared has more than 12 years of experience representing talent in e-discovery, litigation support, and more broadly throughout legal technology staffing. He has successfully placed at this point of his career more than 1,800 professionals in full-time and temporary positions at the AmLaw 200, Fortune 1000, and within the consultancy and service provider communities. And under his leadership, True Staffing Partners has been recognized as one of the top legal staffing firms in the entire country. Jared, it's a real pleasure to have you on today. Thanks a lot for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And joined by Jared is his new colleague, Jeff Scarpitti. He is the head of True Staffing Partners Cyber Division. He is a premier recruiter in privacy and cybersecurity in the cybersecurity industries. He is also the founder and former managing principal of the Connect Group. He is a former practicing attorney with 20+ years of experience in the forensic and legal technology industries, and he is a frequent moderator, speaker, and author on hiring strategies and attorney development in privacy and data security. Jeff, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
It's a real pleasure to have you too. And with that, Jared, here's our agenda. I'll let you walk us through this, and we'll get started with the presentation.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We have a really big group, which is really exciting. We're really flattered to have all of you listening in. And we're going to cover a lot of information, and we really encourage everybody to ask lots of questions. There are no silly questions. This is a lot of new content for e-discovery professionals in general. We're going to look at the career paths for legal technology professionals, and we're going to talk about where cybersecurity and legal analytics fits into that equation and into that diagram. We'll talk about e-discovery and cybersecurity, the origins of these careers, and how the differences and similarities in those origins will affect the long-term mobility, non-mobility, profitability of those skill sets. We'll talk about certifications, which I know is a hot topic for everybody. I like to break them down into two categories, vocational and educational. We'll get into the depth of who fits into what buckets there. Very tactically, I always like in our webinars to give really tactical advice. So we'll talk about how to flip your e-discovery house into a cybersecurity savvy house as it relates to your career and your professional skill set. We'll talk about the transition from federal employees, if we have any government employees on the webinar, and how the transition from moving from a federal job to a commercial sector job at a law firm, corporation, or service provider might be challenging or different, and what obstacles to look out for and how to overcome them. We'll talk a lot about in-house corporate, which I know is something Robbie was really interested in us touching upon, and what are the corporate hiring trends out there in the market now as it relates to e-discovery and cybersecurity. We'll talk about how e-discovery will become legal analytics, even if it takes a long time. And then we'll talk about the non-e-discovery paths that are involved in legal analytics. So that's a big overview. Let's dive right in and talk about career paths. Yeah, this is my favorite one. So the way this is organized, and it's pretty accurate, is the jobs or the job titles or responsibilities will line up in this kind of diagram of, in the top being less advisory and very technical. And if you start there as like a computer science major in the upper left-hand corner and kind of move down to the lower right-hand corner, you'll find that that's where you're going to get the most advisory and the most administrative and operational professionals. The sidebar here that you see of computer science majors down to paralegals, the ones in green are the new ones I've added to this as it relates to cybersecurity and data analytics. These are what I like to think of as entry-level positions. Obviously, attorneys aren't necessarily entry-level all the time, but this is kind of the baseline. Nobody's going to e-discovery and getting a bachelor's degree and entering the market as an e-discovery major. And we'll talk more about that later. But so usually this is where you start. You've got one of these profiles. You can go to school and get a cybersecurity major. Rob, you can click to the next graphic. So most computer science majors are starting in the industry as processing or hosting analysts. You can click to the next animation. And most cybersecurity majors and computer science majors tend to matriculate towards forensic examination work or forensic collections work. The biggest overlap in terms of skill set as it relates to forensics and cybersecurity is skill sets like NK certification, FTK, Celebrite, things like that. We'll talk more about that later. From there, you'll see that some people move in the legal IT space into the e-discovery world as hosting analysts or software developers and operations managers because they've had that skill set on the IT side. There are probably many of you on the line that have come from that background. Go to the next one, Robbie. And then here you see attorneys have a lot of opportunity to go in a lot of different directions. Some attorneys start as document review attorneys. Some go right into e-discovery project management. Some people now, and we'll talk even more about this later, are moving into privacy and security. And there are practice groups being developed specifically with that skill set in great abundance and with great demand right now. Jeff and I just returned from the ALM Cybersecurity conference this week in New York City, which I highly recommend anybody that has an interest in this law or practice or discipline go and attend next year. It was a great conference, probably one of the best ones I went to the year, rich with content, rich with information, intimate still. There were about 600, 700 attendees, I believe, less than 25 vendors. So you really had an opportunity to connect with people and have meaningful conversations. We can go to the next animation. So from here you'll see data analytics analysts, which is a new role that's developing. A lot of these people have programming skills like Python. Some attorneys are moving into that realm because they've gotten really technical. Some document review attorneys who've focused on TAR are finding themselves becoming data analytics analysts. But you're also seeing people that come from computer science backgrounds moving into that role as well. That role is one of the least defined and is very different from employer to employer in terms of what set of skills and responsibilities they possess. You can go to the next one, Robbie. So from here, you can go in a lot of different directions. What we find is that paralegals are often doing a lot of the information governance analyst work in corporations. Some of them have moved into lit support analyst roles or project management roles. Of course, some become attorneys, which is very traditional. Others start as hosting analysts and then work their way forward. We can go to the next animation. So here you'll see, again, you can move down into e-discovery project management. We've put e-discovery project manager smack dab in the middle of this chart because if you want to think of what the bulk of opportunities are, it starts in the center and works its way out. So you're going to see a lot less hiring of, information governance analysts and hosting analysts and a ton of hiring for e-discovery project managers and a lot of hiring in the cyber infosec analyst space. We can go to the next one, Robbie. Can we go to the next one?
Yeah, I think we got there.
Oh, we can keep going?
Okay.
Yep. So you'll see, now we're going to get into where the management opportunities are, right? And in order to get into a management opportunity, which are very rare, you're probably coming from one of these disciplines. Some e-discovery project managers are becoming lit support managers. Certainly cyber infosec analysts can move into forensic lab management. Forensic examiners, collection experts can move into lab management. You can go to the next one. Obviously, project managers are becoming sales engineers and solutions architects and also consultants. We can go on to the next one. And a lot of project managers are becoming real sales professionals now. We can go to the next one. And the next one. This just kind of shows you the different directions to go in. The people making the most money in the industry are in the lower right-hand corner. The people making the least money in the industry are in the upper right-hand corner. And that is pretty consistent of a wave across. In terms of compensation. That's another way to look at this diagram. Any questions? Awesome. Let's keep going. It's going to super animate here. Yeah. Awesome. Next. All right. Here we're going to get into the differences and similarities between e-discovery and cybersecurity. We can just kind of click through these. Yep, the response to urgent, time-sensitive client needs, right? This is what they share in common. There's a data breach. There's an incident that needs to be responded to in cybersecurity. You have a legal obligation to do so in a very short amount of time. Same thing in e-discovery. As I mentioned before, the binding skill set here is forensic collection of data. Whenever there is a breach, data has to be collected and examined, and the same is true of e-discovery. Those skill sets can leverage you, if you have them, into one or the other industry verticals. They both command a serious premium in compensation, although that is going to trend differently as we move forward, with cybersecurity commanding a premium and e-discovery commanding less of a premium. This quote here, cyber positions take more than 25% longer to fill than traditional IT positions, is actually a quote from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I put it up there because that's exactly where we were for e-discovery in 2005, which was a little after I got into the industry. And we will absolutely see a high demand, low supply market for cybersecurity professionals over the next 3 years. The jobs are in major cities. That goes for all of these, although again, we're going to see that change a little bit in e-discovery as we evolve. They're both intimately involved with evolving technology landscapes. Both possess certifications that are vocational and educational. And that's where these industries are very similar. When we get into the differences, and this first one is my favorite one to talk about, if we were in a room and I could see all of your happy smiling faces, I would ask you, how many people remember the Sony hacks and North Korea and watched CNN or Fox News and heard the word cybersecurity about every 15 seconds? All of you are probably raising your hands right now, right? It was all over the news. Cybersecurity, cybersecurity, hack, hack, hack. These words are now part of our colloquial vernacular, right? We all know what they are. Now, how many people remember the Hillary Clinton email scandal? Everybody raises their hand. How many people heard them using the word e-discovery all day, every 15 seconds on CNN or Fox News? No one's raising their hand right now, right? And that's the huge difference between these two verticals and why you're going to see so much money spent in the cybersecurity sector by law firms, corporations, and the providers that support them and their data, is because it moved from social consciousness to corporate consciousness immediately. Immediately. Everybody out there who watches TV has an understanding of cybersecurity. It's our greatest nation's threat. Jim Webb said that that was our greatest nation's threat, was cybersecurity attacks, running for president. So e-discovery does not benefit from that. Nobody uses that word. Nobody knows what it means. We don't think of it that way. And as a result, corporations are pouring money with a sense of urgency into cybersecurity. E-discovery professionals are not road warriors. Most of you probably don't travel 80% of the time. Cybersecurity incident responders are absolutely road warriors. If you're interested in data breach incident response, you better be prepared to be on a plane Monday through Thursday. That is currently the culture and climate. Now, that may be different if you're in an SOC or you're a threat analyst embedded in watching a network at a major corporation. But if you're a consultant, and you're in cybersecurity, chances are you're going wherever there's been a breach or whoever needs to prepare for one. Unlike e-discovery, you can get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in cybersecurity. That's a really key differentiator, both in terms of where the talent will come from and how existing talent can maturate. I like to use the analogy with cybersecurity versus e-discovery, live data versus dead data. Think of it this way. Cybersecurity is like an endless surgery. You go in under the knife and you never come back up. You're constantly looking for where's the new virus going to come from? Where's the new malware? What's the new point of penetration? Where are we vulnerable in our network? What are the evolving technologies and ways of hacking, and constantly monitoring a live organism and protecting it? With e-discovery, you're doing an autopsy, right? You're taking the cadaver, pulling it apart, and figuring out what happened. And that's a real difference in terms of the longevity and stability of certain positions within both verticals. The key, a huge difference here, this is a big one and a really important one if you're a practicing attorney. I had always hoped and thought back in 06, 07 that e-discovery was going to begin to develop its own practice groups that separate itself from the litigation practices within law firms. And this has happened in a few goes, like Scott Carlson has a practice at Seyfarth, David Kessler at Norton Rose Fulbright, Littler has a practice that does this. But with regards to the data breach privacy practice groups, they are rapidly developing as diverse, separate practice groups and institutions within law firms that specialize and focus in this kind of law. And there are going to be a lot of opportunities for lawyers, particularly young lawyers, to move into that segment, become experts in that niche, which will be highly leverageable professionally. Unlike e-discovery, cybersecurity is a very fractured market. E-discovery is going through what I like to call the big roll-up. Many of you may have heard there's been some huge news just in the last 2 weeks. Inventus was acquired. Huron and Concilio have merged. DTI bought Merrill. Ubik bought TechLaw and Evolve. You know, it's tough to be a mid-size or a small e-discovery player right now. The big companies are getting bigger. Epic bought Iris this year. The big companies are getting bigger, and they're going to keep getting bigger, much bigger. Unlike cybersecurity, which is wildly fractured. The New York Times came out with an article a couple of months ago that was the top 500 cybersecurity service providers in the country. 500. And what's funny is, well, I don't know if it's funny. What's interesting is the bottom half of that list are probably companies that are under $10 million, which is not like e-discovery, although it was 5-7 years ago. And then obviously there are very different certifications and that they hold different value. Jeff, do you want to comment on any of this? Does anybody have any questions about these kind of origination stories?
No particular comment other than obviously we're going to get to a lot more discussion about certifications and how you make those moves. You know, this is a big opportunity for many e-discovery and data analytics professionals to move out of the legal environment, where you want to define that as law firm, vendor, or corporate legal department. And many of you have been clamoring that for years, and it's been a tough move over from e-discovery law firm to e-discovery corporate. This is a great opportunity to do so. So we'll jump into some certification discussion.
Any questions, Jeff, that we want to field?
No, not so far. The slide deck will be available. That answers the one general question.
Okay, great.
Hey,
let's go to the next one. Yeah, go ahead, Robbie.
On this end, for the people that are getting bachelor's degrees in cybersecurity, where do you see most of those entry-level jobs existing? Where are those people going, you know, at the onset?
Jeff, you want to field that one first?
Sure. They're really going everywhere. Now, the biggest consumers, if you look at just pure numbers, are going to be government cyber defense contractors, the Raytheons, the Lockheeds, the General Dynamics, the SAICs, et cetera, because they're hiring volumes and volumes of newly minted bachelor's degrees. But you'll also see those folks entering the consulting world at an associate level. And you know, the Big Four certainly have aggressive on-campus recruiting programs. The difficulty of a bachelor's degree is that this field is changing ever so quickly that the curriculum can't keep up, because it takes so long to change curriculums at a university. At University of Maryland, for instance, it's a 3-year process. The whole industry has shifted at that point. So we can dive more into that when we talk about some of the undergrad programs.
So we're going to get into right now. I mean, the certifications break down into a couple different categories. And if you're an e-discovery professional, you really have to think about, am I getting vocation or education? The ability to leverage a vocational certification to get an employment or get more money in your employment is viable in the shorter term. The move towards education is really more of a long-term play, where you're going to have greater long-term viability. It'll probably make you a more consultative professional. It's not technology specific, and will benefit you as you maturate in your career. But if you're looking for a quick fix, get a vocational certification. If you're looking to transition from e-discovery to cyber, start with the forensics piece, right? Get NCASE or FTK, get Cellebrite or Parabin. Cellebrite is becoming more and more the industry standard for mobile collection, mobile device collection, and that's really the most important part, because that's where cybersecurity people are getting hacked the most, are on mobile devices. That seems to be the trend anyway, for now. On the e-discovery side, RCA is essential. It's 70% of the vendor market is using relativity at this point. So if you're looking to break into the business, or you're under 5 years experience and you work in the vendor world and you're trying to find a way to distinguish yourself or move ahead, get your RCA. What I will say to everybody, and you're probably not going to like this, is that having an RCA is no longer the $10,000 increase in salary once you have it that it was a couple of years ago. And a couple of years ago it really was, because they were hard to find and they didn't move very much. Now there are a lot more RCAs. So what you have to think about as an e-discovery professional, if cyber is not the direction you want to go and you want to accelerate in e-discovery, is the combination of different relativity certifications that you have. An RCA is the baseline. To have that legal analytics cert, to have 5 certs and call yourself a relativity expert. I think there are 13 masters in the country right now that have essentially every certification, or the bulk of them. Those people are highly valuable. We know one of the masters who recently made a job move, and the kind of salary increase they made was north of 25% of their base. So it is valuable. Those combination of them will monetize, and vendors will pay a premium for people that are that level of expertise. Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, just in the cyber area, certainly those, and as listed, all those companies have product. When we say vocational, it's really product-specific learning, education, and certification that, as Jared said, will get a quick increase in compensation, but may not have the longevity that really being educated and continuing that process will have for you.
Well, cybersecurity, just like e-discovery, everyone, is if you want to make more money and you want to move ahead and get more responsibility, you're going to move to being more consultative. And the move to being more consultative is where the educational will come in, but you need that vocational foundation in the technologies that are used in order to begin to consult on them. So this is a starting point. We can go to the next one, Robbie. So now we talk about education. There's some great education out there for e-discovery. There is no bachelor's degree program. I know Bryan University has a very long, extended program that is deep. I think ACES is a great baseline education for people that want to validate their knowledge, or people that are looking to break into the business that need that knowledge in order to break in. Or if you're very technical, you're a processor or a hosting support person, and you don't really understand the big picture or the case law of e-discovery, ACES is a great thing to do, and it's not that expensive. Georgetown University also has some great programs. Most of them do require you to be local to the DC, Virginia area, but I encourage everybody that is in that locality to check it out. Litworks DTI, run by Kim Meyer, who's wonderful, has a great program, and they are diverse, and they can do 3-4 day. It's pretty malleable, and I would encourage people to do that if they don't have the time to do something longer. A PMP is, again, really, like I always tell people, come to me and they say, hey, if I get a PMP, will I make more money? Will employers, be more attracted to me? And my response is always, well, not because you've got a PMP after your name, but if that has made you a better professional and you're more organized and thoughtful and articulate as a result of that, and you now have a vernacular of organizing your thoughts and processes and workflows in order to deliver better customer service, then absolutely, you'll elevate. So I would encourage people to take it. It's not easy, and it's not cheap, and it's not quick, but know that it's also not asked for. Our clients are not coming to us saying they need to have a PMP. In fact, I don't think anyone has ever come to me and said that. Sedona is great for attorneys if you're not participating in it and you're a practicing litigator and you're involved in e-discovery. You should be. Cyber's got a very different approach to education, and the deal with cyber is this. Unlike e-discovery, with the exception of maybe the RCA certification, cyber is a world filled with very finite skill sets that are defined by very industry-accepted certifications. And I'm going to let Jeff go into great detail about what some of them are and how they differ in terms of the skill sets and which ones e-discovery professionals might want to look into and why.
Great, thank you. So as Jared said, there are a lot of them. It is acronym soup. You're probably going to need a cheat sheet or a glossary to figure all of them out. But there are some baselines. And first I want to share with you just some statistics that I find fascinating, in that it's projected over the next 4 years only, there will be a need for more than 1 million additional cybersecurity professionals. Here's the issue. Let's put that in context. If all 5 of the top 5 Fortune 500 companies, Walmart, Chevron, Exxon, Apple, etc., if every one of their employees became a cybersecurity expert overnight, we wouldn't be able to fill all the jobs. And that kind of gives you some context for all of this. We lead here with the CISSP certification, and it's a double-edged sword. It is the most required or requested certification. 83% of the jobs posted in cybersecurity either list the CISSP as a requirement or a preferred skill set. The rub here is that the CISSP requires 5 years of experience. The good news, and there's always a silver lining, is that law is one of the listed included disciplines that can count towards that that experience, but you need an additional skill set. And we'll talk about that in Flipping Your House, about how you may need to be volunteering within your own company, law firm, etc., to really access some of that experience and qualify to take that exam. As Jared said, there are also the certifications continue to grow on top. So as we started with foundational certifications like CompTIA Security Plus, et cetera, we're now seeing even higher level certifications for advanced professionals at a certified security management level, at a CISO level. If anyone doesn't know what a CISO is, it stands for Chief Information Security Officer. The other interesting statistic here is that less than 10% of AmLaw 200 law firms have a CISO in place. And yet the liability that exists in a law firm if their client's data is breached is just absolutely immense. So as we said, this is educational, it is broader, but it doesn't give you practical experience. So you're going to have to figure out a way to mold your career so you're getting that.
And one of the things, Jeff, I'll jump in here, specifically on the CISSP, which has a 5-year accreditation, practical work experience. Hey, I worked on this project, and we were, examining vendors for our pen testing initiative. Something as simple as that is a place to start, so that you don't have to make a job move in order to begin to get the 5 years of work experience. Sorry to interrupt, Jeff. I just wanted to make
not
that
at all.
comment.
And a real practical example of that, for instance, is whether you're a vendor, a firm, etc., is your organization going through ISO 27001 certification? And nearly everyone's going to have to be certified at some point here in the very near future. Law firms struggle with that process because it requires lots of documentation about their policies and procedures. Volunteer there. Try to jump in and document that and help. It won't be on a full-time basis, obviously. You have a full-time job, but that is a great way to get some practical experience. The only on this list, the one certification I did want to highlight, because it is a relevantly non-technical certification and really designed predominantly for attorneys. So staff attorneys out there that want to get into a privacy track in their career should be involved in the IAPP, the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and should sit for
distinguish yourself or move your skill set or your work exposure into the cybersecurity side of things. I think that for managers, and Jeff and I are prophetic about this, managers in e-discovery and litigation support who maybe don't want to move jobs, are happy where they're at, but feel like they might be getting stagnant or their value financially is not measuring up to what it was years ago based on profit decreases or whatever. Now you're in a managed service model, whereas before you were insourcing things. Go get technical. You're going to have to go back to school. Figure out ways to get involved in other initiatives. Take on responsibilities outside of e-discovery if you can. Reinvent yourself. It's going to be necessary. There aren't going to be vertical positions for e-discovery managers at the AmLaw 200, or if they're at a corporation, to move into similar roles at other law firms and corporations. When I first got into this business in 2003, we were working on 30 to 40 lit support manager jobs a year. Now we get like 4 because those jobs don't exist. People covet those jobs heavily. They're well paid and they don't have a lot of places to go. So to move up financially and vertically, you're probably going to have to learn additional skill sets. Regardless of what level of experience you're at, learning a program language is a really good idea right now, and this relates more to analytics than probably specifically cyber. Python in particular is becoming the most popular programming language as it relates to legal and data analytics, big data analytics, advanced analytics. Learning Python and being a practicing attorney who could program makes you very unique and very valuable, and if you're passionate about technology-assisted review and using analytics, go learn Python. That would be a great use of your once-a-week take a class time. Attend different conferences. I didn't have a chance to add Cybersecurity on here from ALM, which we were at this week, but I would definitely put them on this list. Jeff, tell us a little bit about some of these others. You know them a little bit better than I mean, I know Black Hat pretty well, and Black Hat is a really cool one. But tell everybody a little bit about what these are and why, who might want to go to which.
Sure. So let's start with RSA because it's huge and it's very product specific. So for those of us that started or are currently in legal, it's probably the least relevant, but it's also one of the largest. As Jared alluded, Black Hat is the community of hackers out there who have hopefully turned to wearing white hats. This is probably about a 10-year-old conference held in Vegas every year. If you go, and it is a wonderful experience to go, you will be exposed to all kinds of new technology and seminars. Don't turn on your mobile device or your laptop because you'll be hacked. When you bring 100,000 hackers to one city, what they do in the evening is exercise their fingers, and it will be at your mobile device. So just a little funny aside there. Again, many of these are held in major cities, and they have regional events. So the IAPP, for instance, held their national conference in Washington last year, but they have 4 regional events that happen. So you don't have to travel far to attend one of these. You don't have to take a week off, those kind of things. They also have, chapters that have events, and you should go not only for education but also for networking. Clearly, that's going to be your path of least resistance to a job. There was a question, Jared. I just want to bring this up. I think we've addressed much of it, but it was around the dichotomy of having to have experience to get a certain certification. So which certifications don't require experience? And again, we mentioned those. They're at the entry level. CompTIA Security Plus is one. There is a certified incident response professional that does not require practical experience or years of experience. Some of the others certainly do, CISSP, CEH, etc. And I can go over
Does it CEH, Jeff?
Yeah.
It does?
Yes.
And
I don't think it's 5 years, though. I don't know the exact number, but it's not 5 years.
The CEH is the Certified Ethical Hacking Certificate. So if you are specifically interested in hacking, that's the one that, employers will come to us and say, I need a CEH, right? The same way they would come to us and say, I need an RCA. That one definitely has very specific value. What about the CIPP, Jeff? Because that really is for privacy professionals, and I want to touch on the CIPP because there's the US, the UK, the EU, Then there's the CIPT, right, for privacy for IT, which is as a network application. And then there's the CIPM, which is the Privacy Program Administrator certification, all of which are under IAPP. But I think for the attorneys that are on the call who are privacy data governance experts or want to be experts, can you touch on that for us?
Sure. So as you mentioned, the CIPP is the kind of entry level at the IAPP certifications. Does not require practical experience. I passed the test and got certified, and I'm not a practicing privacy professional. And then, as Jared said, you can advance to the CIPM, which is the program manager. That's going to be somebody who's running a privacy program, likely at a corporation, but certainly at a consulting firm as well. That will be where you'll find most of the chief privacy officers that have certification. So yeah, there's no experiential requirement for the CIPP, and it is absolutely necessary, I think, to sit for both the U.S. exam, but also, and everyone reads about all the changes in the newly minted safe harbor requirements. The EU would be a very valuable one to have, so you can do kind of cross-border data work.
I'll say this: anybody out there who has, well, first of all, if you fit this profile, call me. Anybody out there that has a dual citizenship with the EU or the UK and is a practicing attorney who has these certifications, you're unique. You're sought after. Because the ability to go parachute in and work in those European offices, clients will move you over there. There is not enough sophisticated talent in the EU and in the UK to meet the demand that they're currently experiencing, both with practicing attorneys as it relates to privacy and data governance, as well as e-discovery professionals. So having those certifications and having a dual citizenship, and quite frankly, some of our clients even sponsor people now with visas because it's been so difficult to find people locally, particularly in Germany and London, there's a lot of opportunity for you there, and there will continue to be.
We say own time, own dime, and I think this is a very important concept to discuss today, which is this transition doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to start with self-education. And so you're going to need to invest in yourself. That's not only reading, that's not only joining trade associations and conferences, that's not only going for initial fundamental foundation certifications, but all of those things need to begin to occur. And as Jared said, picking up an additional programming language will be invaluable to you, just in terms of its understanding the overall scope of cybersecurity.
But Jeff, I love your next thing, the practice principles at home, which is such a great way if you're not sure if you want to do this or how good you'll be at this. I love this as a practical, tactical piece of advice. But build a home network security. Build a home network. Build the security into it. How are you monitoring and managing it? You know, what are you doing personally with your own identity theft protection? Have you ever managed your own private server? I mean, these things can be done by consumer grade people now. It's available, and it's not expensive, and it's a good way to talk and just learn the lingo and learn how to connect the dots.
Yeah, it's almost the practice what you preach. Begin it at home, and there are this isn't costly to build a home network or to get involved in your identity management. Is anybody, people using applications like Names to see what's coming up on the internet about them on a regular basis? That's becoming extremely important. Is anyone using password vaults like a LastPass or one of those? If you want to become a professional in this area, you should be practicing these fundamentals in all of your daily activities, both at work and at home.
And this last point is one that, go ahead, Jeff.
No, please.
This last point is one that I think is something everyone can immediately begin doing in their current role. It doesn't require anything other than Who are the federal regulators that you and your clients deal with? Who are the cyber practitioners that you and your clients deal with on the government side of things? Because those government professionals are moving into the private sector, are going to continue moving into the private sector, and having a relationship with them, understanding what they do, understanding what they're looking for. Those people generally are there to help you. One of the things that was very clear at cybersecurity is that the FBI is watching the entire world. And those men and women whose chief concern is protecting us as a country, right? It's a very different culture, cyber from e-discovery. As I've gotten deep into it, what's categorically different is people in the cybersecurity world generally are coming from federal and generally share one thing in common, which is their number one concern and priority is protecting our country. And that's kind of leads their decisions and their career first and foremost. It's very different than e-discovery, which is not that.
One way you can get involved with that community immediately, and there are very few requirements other than you're going to be have to pass a background check, is you can join your local chapter of InfraGuard, INFRA Guard, and that is where the FBI interacts with the private sector. And they give updates and provide statistics on trends they're seeing, etc. So there's a chapter in every major city, and it's a probably about a 2 or 3 week application process. But I would really recommend that you go and participate in InfraGuard, not only because you get to interact with the FBI and other federal regulators, but also you'll have practitioners there that are in the private sector. And again, it's a great way to... Go ahead.
Yes to all of that. That's fantastic. I'm really glad you remembered to bring that up. InfraGuard is a great organization to join. There's also an organization called OWASP, O-W-A-S-P, and you can go to owasp.org. And there's a New York chapter, there's a New Jersey chapter, there are California chapters, Chicago chapters. I'm actually not sure how deep the chapters go in terms of second and third tier markets. Most major markets have a chapter. It's a little less formal than InfraGuard, but it is a community of professionals that are in this space. So I would encourage people to look at that too. We can go on to the next slide, Rob. Jeff, I don't want to spend too much time here, but can you just quickly kind of organize for us what's going to be the hardest part of people in the federal sector moving to the commercial sector?
And as you said, Jared, it's a cultural thing. You go from protecting God and country to moving into an area where that's much more oriented around monetization of those and protecting corporate assets and those kind of things. There's a new lexicon to learn, obviously, a new vocabulary to learn. And that is difficult from folks coming from the federal space because they speak in all acronyms, and we in the private sector typically don't. But they have all of the fundamental skills. And this is where we've been training hundreds of thousands of cyber professionals for more than 10 to 15 years in cybersecurity. Ironically, funny story is that we really trace the genesis of cybersecurity back to the movie War Games, when right afterwards there was a spike in young people hacking into government computers, and therefore the government responded and built a massive cybersecurity program. So lots of them there, lots of practical skills. They need to learn how to function in the private sector and speak the private sector language.
You can go to the next slide. Let's talk about, we're just going to kind of switch trajectory a little bit, but this is going to lead us into legal analytics, and then we'll have some time for questions. The transition in-house corporate trends. People are constantly asking me, how do I go in-house corporate? I want to go in-house corporate. I want to go in-house corporate. The reality is that less than 5% of the jobs in the e-discovery market in particular are at in-house corporate. It still remains to be seen if that will also be the case for cybersecurity. It is clear that the vendor community right now for cybersecurity is hiring most aggressively, although there is percolation of some hiring for more information security than, say, cybersecurity on the law firm and the corporate side. And that has a heavy involvement in information governance and privacy. In terms of corporations and Robbie, I know these are some of the specific things you wanted to touch upon. Are corporations insourcing more or sending out more? It just depends on the corporation. Unlike law firms or vendors, which I could absolutely articulate where they're trending, it's tough. Different corporations respond to things differently. Like, you get a JPMC and they got a lot of people in-house. You go to Disney and they don't. But both are huge corporate entities and conglomerates with, massive amounts of data. Is the effect of what is the effect on the cloud on hiring? And I spoke to Robbie about this, prior to this. Not much. The one effect it has is if you're not consultative, if what you do all day is press buttons, and I don't mean like writing complicated code or running complex, analysis and analytics on things, but I mean processing data, generally speaking, or doing very basic, I/E import export kind of work. The cloud will take your job away eventually. It's already happening. I mean, the amount of analysts that we placed in 2010 is double what we'll place this year in full-time permanent positions. And quite frankly, most of those professionals are becoming contractors. And most people are augmenting their staffs with people to do the button pressing when they need it or outsourcing it to a vendor. IG job growth or lack of growth. The IG jobs in the market are almost 15-1 to e-discovery jobs. It's tough, and we have IG positions, but there are not a lot of people that have the kind of skill sets yet that most of the people hiring for these IG positions want. And that duality is both a records management background, but a hyper-technical background too. So someone in e-discovery that came from a records background and now is intimately involved in the EDRM from a technical standpoint would be a good IG candidate in today's marketplace. But again, the jobs are 15-1. There are not going to be a lot of them. There won't be a lot of mobility. And the thing that I find the vendor community is struggling with is you see a lot of e-discovery providers developing information governance practices, but to some extent you have to ask the question of, will these, IG opportunities cannibalize the volume for e-discovery business? And IG not on the same scale, not even close to e-discovery positions. But listen, hopefully that will change. But for example, what I've heard as a standard is the IG projects are, on a good day, high six figures, probably more likely, $200,000, $300,000 projects. But an e-discovery project that involves document review and processing and the whole kit and caboodle, maybe it's a second request or something, those can be $5 to $10 million projects. And so it will be interesting to see if the adoption of IG, generally speaking, does cannibalize that work or not, and how aggressively are people pushing those services. Certainly the adoption of IG is a trickle, not a fountain. Practicing attorneys in-house, data governance, compliance, privacy, we talked about this. If you are in that niche, you could go in-house a lot easier than if you're an e-discovery attorney. I think that kind of covers this. Any questions?
So we have one that this might be the appropriate time to address. And again, it talks about the acronym soup of all the acronyms, of all of the certifications. But it mentions the CCFP, which is ISC2's Cyber Forensics certification. Sure. Very relevant in our space. We come at cybersecurity from two different angles. One is pre-event. We call that advisory and assessment, and it's moving towards the event and trying to alleviate the damage that's going to occur. And then there's the right side, if you like the EDRM model, where you're coming at it post-event, post-incidents, and you're having to forensically collect and do reverse malware engineering. If you want to be in that kind of work, in the breach response work, CCFP would be invaluable to you, particularly if that may happen to be married with an NK certification.
Let's talk quickly about legal analytics. Here are just some interesting statistics. When we interviewed our corporate and AmLaw clients and we talked about the number of cases that they actually utilize legal analytics, and it is less than 10%. It's actually less than 8%, generally speaking. That'll change. We think it'll take 10 years for that to change to the point where we see 90% of cases using analytics. The people that are getting involved in TAR, CAR, PC now will absolutely be more valuable over time. Right now, the legal vendors are dominating the market. We see a lot of the e-discovery players being the people that their clients are going to for analytics work. By 2020, you're going to see a lot of outliers enter this space, and it's going to create more of a fractured market as it relates to legal analytics. Companies like Palantir or resellers of Palantir, Red Owl, Prescient, you're going to see names that maybe you haven't heard all the time trying to sell you their business. Because they feel like their technology is more sophisticated. And anybody who's seen a demo of Palantir will tell you that it is. Palantir is incredible. It's one of the most incredible legal analytics and visualization tools that I've seen. NextLP is another company to look out for, started by Jay Lieb, former CSO of Kcura. They're all natural language programming. It's an interesting, and specifically built on the back end of relativity. I would look out for that technology as well. Doc review. Right now, doc review hourly wages remain the largest cost in the EDRM. We think that by 2025, maybe 60 to 70% of those people will be replaced by machines. And then what we'll have on the front end are what we call super reviewers. And those super reviewers will be doing analytic level work and have an ability to search through data on the fly. And like, if you've ever seen Minority Report, that's where my head is at. Right? Like eventually document review is going to be more like Minority Report, where you've got somebody in almost a three-dimensional data environment able to move different pieces in order to put the puzzle together. But it won't make sense for people to look at static images of documents anymore, because that's not going to be the data sets that we're dealing with or how we're trying to draw connectivity between those data sets. The document won't be as relevant as the connectivity between the documents when we get 10 years in the future. And making those connections will require less people, but a higher level of skill set. Right now, 95% of reviewers have no programming skills. By 2020, we think that will change significantly. I don't know by how much, but hopefully people are taking our advice and going out and learning Hadoop or NLP, Python, Java, because I do think that being able to do some of that on the fly will make you more valuable. Next slide. We actually covered most of this. Yes. Next slide. We could talk a little bit about this. I want to make sure we have time for any other questions, because I know we only got about 5 minutes left. Anything else pop up?
Question about the GIAC certification, which is the certifying body that is aligned with the SANS Institute.
Sure.
The question is about that the GIAC is extremely expensive. When I said self-investment and in self-education, it wasn't merely time and effort. There will be some financial investment here. Hang tight for some news to follow about potential avenues into GIAC and SANS.
The people at SANS are really good at what they do, and the quality of their training, which I've participated in, is high, which is probably why the price might be a little bit high. But I think you're going to find, and if I were you and interested in cyber and interested in the GIAC certifications, I would very closely watch the SANS Institute and us here at True over the next couple of months. Legal analytics for non-e-discovery paths. There's not a lot here, but they're certainly using analytics legally to analyze firm spend, a lot of matter management prediction, looking for predictive behavior, internal investigation, IP usage and monitoring, jury behavior. All analytics is being used for all of this. It's not necessarily technology-assisted review. And if you have these skill sets, there are other directions within a law firm that you can go, or a corporation that you can go. It's also specifically a way to move from a law firm to a corporation, because a corporation is much more interested and probably much more apt to spend money on resources, both technologically and in terms of human capital, on doing analytics on their behavior or spend or investigation or whatever. The more predictability that can corporation have that can lead to profitability for their stockholders, yes, they'll be willing to make that investment. A law firm, not so much. Not that they don't, but not as aggressively as corporates. And these are smart jobs. So you're not going to see a lot of these jobs in the non-e-discovery legal analytics path. They're not going to be in abundance. These are going to be for elite professionals. Next slide. So that's the end. So we've talked so much about education. I wanted to quickly plug our scholarship program. It costs nothing to apply. We give away almost $100,000 in different certifications and educational initiatives. So if money is an issue, here's a way to get in for free. And we have hundreds of people apply. Last year, I think we gave out close to 25 different scholarships for different opportunities at these 4 specifics. The 2015 program included these 4, but the 2016 program is going to include more, including some that are going to be in the cybersecurity certification space. So definitely look for our announcement in probably another 4 weeks, right before Legal Tech New York, when we'll have our full roster of all of our partners for the 2016 scholarship program. You can apply throughout the spring. We usually close things at the end of the first quarter. We have a advisory board that is filled with cybersecurity practitioners, both at corporate and at AmLaw, and litigation support managers, both from AmLaw and corporate and some from service providers, all of whom are doing anonymous assessment of the application process and awarding the winners. We don't choose the winners at True. We have a board that does. So it's a great thing, and I can tell you categorically that people that have gone through our scholarship program and received additional education have absolutely gotten jobs as a result of that education. Next slide. I think that's it.
We have another question.
Oh, great.
If we can, just in a couple of minutes. And that revolved around the up-and-coming software that professionals should become familiar with to try to advance their careers. And I think we've addressed a lot of that. We've gone over programming languages. There are some that you're probably not going to be able to get experience with, such as what we call SIEM software, SIEM, which is Security Incident Event Management. That's the kind of software that you would use if you were working in a security operations center, but you have to be with an employer who's using ArcSight, for instance, or another technology. Getting the general languages and knowing how you craft different scripts is probably the best way. However, if you're at a law firm with a white-collar practice, for instance, and you're defending AML and FCPA work, you very well may be working with corporations that need to invoke one of a few data analytics technologies that are very advanced. Jared mentioned Palantir. We could talk about Red Owl Analytics. If anyone has questions on that, they can certainly email me, and I can give them a little more guidance.
And companies are also building their own custom analytic applications. That happens a lot, especially at corporate.
Jeff, do you have any more questions on your end?
I do not from participants.
Okay, we have a couple more on this end. So, Jared, when you just judging off of kind of all the surveys of corporate legal departments that have come out this year, so like the ones from Norton Rose and Fulbright and Allman Whale, kind of these big bellwether reports,
Sure.
and looking at the vendor ones as well, they kind of all say the same thing when it comes to e-discovery, which is organizations are generally still struggling to track e-discovery costs. They're struggling to reduce e-discovery costs. They're trying to bring more work in-house from what they're sending out to law firms. So it's certainly not like at least big organizations have mastered e-discovery, right? And so the question is, why hasn't that translated into a continued focus and investment in corporate e-discovery?
So I want to just correct something that you said that I actually don't agree with. Yes, corporations are sending less to their outside counsel, but that doesn't mean they're bringing it in-house. They're just sending it to vendors. So the paradigm in 2004, 2005 was very linear, right? You had a corporation, they pushed it down to outside counsel. Whatever outside counsel didn't want to do, they pushed it to the vendor, right? It was incredibly linear. And then the data and the deliverables worked its way back up. Now it's a triangle. It'll go right to the vendors. The vendors will go right to the corporations. The vendors aren't selling to law firms anymore. Most of the vendors I know hate selling to law firms. They want to go right to the client. They want to get a managed service contract with the client. So the notion that corporations are doing it more in-house is actually not accurate. Some of them are, yes, some of them are. Some of technology and bringing it in-house and institutionalizing it, but for the most part, they're pushing it out to the vendors, which has led to a couple of things that affect people. One of which is salaries, right? So now vendors aren't paying $150,000 for project managers because they're getting so much more work. They actually need 3 people to do the job that one used to do, and they can't pay them $150,000 each because their margins are getting squeezed as things are getting compressed, especially managed service contracts. If you sold a managed service contract to a major corporation or a major law firm, they're getting a better price than they would if they were just purchasing things a la carte transactionally. So of course you're not going to be able to spend more money on talent or technology in order to keep yourself profitable. You have to spend less. So you're going to need more people for less money, which is why it's a great time for people to break into e-discovery that are, less than 5 years experience. But to your corporate point, the corporations are bringing in thought leadership. The corporations are bringing in higher level people, generally speaking. The corporations will bring in forensics. You'll see a lot of people, like Allstate has 100 forensic examiners that work in-house, because otherwise they'd be paying, consulting firms an insane amount of money with the amount of collections they have to do. So does that address that question?
Yeah, that's a great answer. And then the other thing we're going to ask is, so it would seem like, the e-discovery consolidate. Well, so let me just say this: you kind of frame the presentation as, a decline in consolidation of e-discovery and a rise in cybersecurity. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I guess the question is, does that speak more toward kind of the top tier of the market? It would seem like there are, a ton of smaller and mid-sized law firms out there and organizations out there that have not even begun to contend with e-discovery yet. And as it becomes kind of more of an issue for everyone, and as data volumes continue to grow and all that, I'm wondering if you think that that's going to have any larger impact on the hiring market.
No, because I don't think that they haven't wrapped their mind around e-discovery. I think the notion that there is still an untapped well, an underdeveloped piece of land where someone's going to go knock on the door of a law firm in this country and they're going to not know how to do e-discovery or not have an understanding of e-discovery, and they're going to make millions of dollars with that law firm is nuts. It's just not true. Most law firms have a pretty good sense of it. Maybe they're not doing it. Maybe they're relying completely on external resources and consultants, but they're not completely oblivious to e-discovery. From a vendor perspective, the war of the vendors is no longer who's going to get the clients first. It's whose clients am I going to steal? It's a different market than it was 5 years ago. So I don't think you're going to find that there's going to be all these jobs available at, AmLaw 200 to 400 that haven't figured it out yet, or all of a sudden want to bring things in-house. It's pretty cost-effective to outsource now, and that's not to say it couldn't be more cost-effective to bring it in. There are people that do it and do it really well, but law firms are moving into more very polarized models. In 2006-07, it was all these shades of gray. But now, law firms are either bringing it in or pushing it out. You'll find more shades of gray in corporate today, but mostly law firms we're all in or we're all out. And most of the ones that are all in are the really, really big ones, like Sidley and Skadden, things like that. The ones that are not are all over the board. But here's what's not going to happen. I'm not going to have 20 job orders in 2016 for lit support managers at 150 to 200 at law firms that are under 50 attorneys. It's not going to happen. They don't see the value in paying that kind of money. They don't want to have that person in-house. And quite frankly, the person that would be qualified for that job probably doesn't want it, because that job is really just a project manager job with a manager's title. You know, those firms expect you to be a jack of all trades. It's not like you're going to go to a firm with 50 attorneys, have a staff of 6 or 7, and not touch data anymore as an e-discovery professional. It's not realistic.
Okay, well put. Jeff, any additional comments from you?
No, other than those that are in law firms, you're going to see a massive bloom in your own firm's hiring for information security professionals. So that is an event that you probably, again, want to begin to self-educate, volunteer at work, get some skills, so that might be the least painful segue for you. Other than that, I think we've really covered it, and happy to answer any emails that come across our desks.
All right, very good. Well, Jeff and Jared, this was a real pleasure. Thanks for all this great information. And I want to wish happy holidays to our attendees as well. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, if you do have any questions, please do reach out to Jared and Jeff. They'd be happy to help out. And this recording will be posted to the Logikcull blog probably over the weekend. So if you missed any part of it, please come back and rewatch it. All right. Again, Jeff and Jared, it was a real pleasure. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Robbie. Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for the participants.